right, next up on stage with me today is Thomas Ince, and I'm pretty excited to talk to Thomas. We're going to walk through his career. He started off in dental practices. He was a dentist, which is pretty cool. He launched his own education company, and he has since made the leap to an independent sponsor where his businesses across 7 verticals are doing about $450 million in combined revenue. So very impressive career, and I'm excited to dive into it with you.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Most of the time that we're going to spend together on stage, we're going to be talking about that transition from entrepreneur to investor. But the first 3 minutes, I would like to talk about the entrepreneurial journey that you went on. So you got interested in Buffett, and you decided to become a dentist.
Yeah, we were talking last night about it. I guess I started off as a pre-dental major. That was when I entered college to be a dentist. And maybe around my sophomore year or so, I think I read The Making of the American Capitalist, book by Lowenstein, and just sort of went down like a Buffett rabbit hole, probably like a lot of us here did. And I sort of got to a crossing. I applied to dental school, got accepted, but I before doing that, I thought I switched my major to finance. I'm gonna go down a different route, more of a business route. But at the time when I was 20, I went down. My parents, grandparents, they really pushed me towards, and myself too. I sort of felt like I was taking a safer route. Like, let's go this way. This is a sort of a proven track of getting to a good spot. But never was really super happy with that career choice, and eventually decided just to. I had 3 offices, sold them, and I started an education company, actually in the dental space, and it was eventually called Zollege, but we had eventually 150 dental and medical assisting training schools across the country. So that was my transition into the entrepreneurial journey, doing that, and eventually it was essentially like Airbnb for vocational schools. We would go to a doctor's office, a doctor when we got a school license with the state, and we would rent doctor spaces on Saturdays whenever they were closed, very much like Airbnb for vocational schools, and provide hands-on training certification to become a dental assistant or medical assistant. So I grew that over time to about 150 locations. We had a little over 400 employees doing that.
And you exited in
2021. So always been a serial entrepreneur, starting different businesses. Around 2016 or so, a guy that I knew that was a business broker reached out and was like, "Hey, can you help me grow my business brokerage business?" And so I joined him, started helping out, and we sold to a number of different individuals, to different PE groups, and some independent sponsors bought some of the things that we were selling. And I was really just intrigued by that model. I knew I was perplexed, like how did these guys get $30 million to buy this? I know they didn't have that money personally. So I didn't know what independent sponsors were, but I sort of stalked them on the internet, found out they were independent sponsors, Googled it. There's a conference called McGuire Woods Conference, Independent Sponsor Conference, and in 2018 I went there, and sort of went down a path around then to switch to that. So I started doing that really full time around 2018, and I had a CEO in place around 2017-16 at Zollege, and it took a while to sort of get to a point where I could step away from Zollege full time, but eventually did that. So going down the process of like Traction, EOS, another book I liked was Great Game of Business. Those I just really deployed the principles in those books, and I was able to step away and really not even work in the business at all for over a year.
So you step back in 2017, 2018, you bring on a CEO, and you start trying to, you launch LP First Capital.
Yeah, in 2018, I launched that, showed up to that McGuire Woods conference, and I had a potential deal I could maybe that I could talk about, but yeah, but I just showed up and really didn't know anything. So I talked to capital partners and just really took a couple years to get the first deal done. Bought one company in 2019, but really the first big one we started doing was landscaping in 2020 after COVID.
So you still own the business. You had just stepped back from being a CEO. And I think a lot of people, and why I was so excited for you to step up on stage here and share your story, is a lot of people, we're all deal-hungry fanatics, right? And for much of the audience, the idea of stepping back from being this entrepreneur with a lot of pressure and just doing deals, just schlopping deals all day sounds like a really great time.
Yeah. Well, I think it's if you're trying to step back, it's good to get to a point where you just really the best book out there is Traction. I think a U.S. book. You need to create a leadership team. That leadership team needs to be cohesive. There needs to be accountability chart. Who's accountable for what? You need to know what KPIs to track. And you just got to put some things in motion. I think taking time away from the business helps out a lot too. So ever since 2000 and around 2012 or so, I started the business in 2010. Around 2012, went to Colorado every 2 weeks in the summer, and that was always a good litmus test of like, okay, I'm gone these 2 weeks. What happens when I'm gone? And then sometimes it would turn into a month, but just what can the business survive without me? And then you sort of make a list of, okay, I need to carve off this portion of myself with this new hire. Who can, what capabilities can we add to the company? And eventually got to a place where I would show up and people didn't know who I was. And I was really more in the owner seat. And so I think and I really didn't get traction at LP First Capital until I fully stepped away, because it was hard to do both at the same time.
Yeah, I want to talk about that transition. So you step back. What was that first 6 months like as you're no longer in the operating seat and you're beginning to try to raise capital to go take down more deals?
It was a little weird, and it was you still wanted to get in there and try to do stuff, but I think you learn to work more, be a coach and ask questions with CEOs versus like telling them what to do. And at the time, I think there was some instances where I was a little I probably could have asked more questions and done that, but you sort of learn over time. So you have to sort of step back and get to a point where you're more in that board owner seat versus in the operating seat. But like doing deals at first, I was mainly doing them myself, and I didn't really get much traction, so I started bringing a team around me. Yeah.
I think one of the things that's just fascinating, when you and I were talking about this conversation, it's like a step change, right? So you go from being this executive CEO with 400 employees to now 2,500. 5 years later, obviously not directly managing, but responsible for. Mm-hmm. And you said that you took this step back from Zollege, and it took you 4 to 5 years to really feel comfortable in your own skin inside LP First Capital.
Yeah.
Why was that?
Well, I think something. Well, like whenever I had Zollege, we grew every year 30% a year. That was growing, when you're looking at when you're doing PE style roll-ups, there's a lot of moving parts. So you see a lot of opportunities for improvement, and And through some conversations recently, when we're talking to investment banks about possibly selling some of our assets, I sort of thought like, well, okay, actually, we're doing good, because they were comparing. So we're talking about selling one of our assets right now, and they were comparing it to the last 8 bellwether transactions in that space, and they're pointing out that, hey, your organic growth was the highest out of that nine company eight company cohort, as being the ninth, and you have the highest gross margins, and we did do a lot of stuff to do that. But you're looking at it and you're like, okay, 18% growth. That's not great, but it was compared to those other companies that it was great. And that was more on an individual basis. You're layering some corporate overhead, but I think you're looking at other companies and you're wondering what's your level of integration. Are you checking all the boxes? And it's good to get validation on some of those things. Being new, because I came in as an entrepreneur. Like going back to like 2018 when I first showed up at the McGuire Woods conference, showed up in jeans and a shirt like this, and I looked very awkward in the space. And so I think but I really was intrigued with the model. I think it's great having the entrepreneurial background. Thought that it would be good. You could provide value there because the traditional private equity track is investment banking, private equity backgrounds, and I think there's a lot of benefit merging operating backgrounds and finance backgrounds on a team, a cohesive team. I don't see that in a lot of firms.
Can you explain how you guys have done that?
Yeah, so we there's 10 of us now, and so we have half of the firm have more entrepreneurial operating backgrounds, and then the other half has more traditional private equity backgrounds, like investment banking or working in other private equity firms, and so with that we are all on, we have essentially 8 different hats that we have to wear on each deal team. And we don't have we don't have 8 people on any deal team, but we want to have someone wear each hat. Like we have someone that is in charge of thinking about revenue growth, someone that's in charge of thinking about margin improvement, someone that's in charge of deploying our LPFC playbook in the company, and also the deal lead. So you have different roles, and so but they're all the same team. A lot of firms treat like the operating partners as like a separate group. We try to like keep it all together as the same group, same title even, like from an outward focus, because I think a lot of people are more like stem cells. They have a potential to do different things. Sometimes titles, if you're in a certain role, you're capable of learning and doing more stuff.
I want to step back because I don't feel like we fully parsed this part out. And this is like I want to learn so that I can do this one day, right? So coach me, Thomas.
Yeah.
So I'm imagining if I sold today, on stage, a live auction, that if I went and tried to do something in the next year, my natural compulsion would be, I see a problem and I'm going to like kick down the door and I'm going to come in with a bat and I'm going to attack the problem, because it's the reflex that we've built over the past almost decade. What personal development did you have to put into yourself to stop yourself from doing that and step from this, doer and charger into a coach in the background?
I mean, I think you just have to bite your tongue and ask questions and think more about the meta systems in place, like what's the format of your monthly reporting call or your weekly reporting call, which KPIs should you be tracking, and create structures to where you let CEOs have the autonomy to deploy their playbook. Like a lot of times we roll out OKRs. We say, hey, what's the goal system? We use OKRs a lot as our sort of our standard go-to. We have one CEO, he likes MBOs. So I'm like, okay, we like to see a goal system. So it's good to have we basically have an index of certain qualitative factors that we like to see, and we like to sort of check those off as things go down the pipe. But when you're doing a buy and build, you're buying multiple companies, it's hard to like day one snap your finger and get everything perfect. So it's good to have it on a tracker and then keep on asking what's our plan for a weekly scoreboard? Let's get how are we doing with moving over to our ERP? And so you're tracking that over time. So I guess the advice is to just bite your tongue and think about how to ask questions, and versus making statements. And then there's lots of ways to get to the right outcome. So I think the most important thing is to keep the autonomy with the CEO, keep them in charge of the company versus, because you can't spin all the plates.
You and I have talked off stage now a few times about IO. Similar sort of question, and this is we're jumping back to, hey, you have the operations section and you have the investing section of your firm. So it looks like you're collecting former CEOs and you're using them to add value to your portfolio companies. Is that a fair assessment?
In IO's case, yeah, he's a former CEO. We don't have we have some CEOs in the team, but not like there's maybe a couple. But yeah, so IO, he's really great because he's got a good spectrum on deal aspects, and then he's got the experience of running a company and growing it. And a lot of times in private equity, you have the people in the firm, they've never ran a business before, and so that there's some problems with that. And IO's great because he has that experience about being punched in the face, really, in small business, and he's got the empathy of dealing with fires, and he's always he has got great ideas, and I might come with an idea, he'll push back and have another idea, so it's great. And he also when he came on, so his title is investment professional. Same with I think we're changing some of the titles on the website. We haven't updated on the website, and we have another guy that just recently came on, investment banking background. Josh, he's investment professional too. Traditionally, IO might at another firm come on as an operating partner, but they're the same title, but we have internal tracks. One's an operating track, one's a finance track, and really anyone can lead a deal team, and so I think there's some benefit merging the two on the same deal team. I don't really see many firms doing this, and similar. I'm reading currently the Elon Musk biography right now. He took. It seems like not a novel concept, but if you look at Boeing or the car manufacturers, usually have the engineering department in another building versus on the manufacturing floor. They put them on the same team. So then any production workers have an idea, they can. So I think having that deal team, like Joe, who's here, you might have talked to him. He works a lot with Daniel on our team, and I would imagine Joe would say that, like, he's a better investor now that he works with Daniel a lot, and Daniel also would say he's a better investor now. It's more like a full stack investor, like a developer knows front end, back end. It's I think having the operate, like Buffett says, like you're the better business person I am, the better investor I am, the better business person. I think but if you've only have one group of people that have one, just wearing the investor cap, they don't fully develop to their full potential.
So we've talked a little bit about your past entrepreneurship. We've dove into sort of that jump over. Talked about the firm, which is unique. I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking about how you managed going from, jeans and a polo at McGuire Woods and feeling very out of place to deploying $280 million in the course of a couple of years.
Yeah. So, so what it really helps out having a diverse team. So, and then having a thesis. And so, when you have a diverse team, you can convey to capital partners that you have the capabilities to be entrusted with their money, and there's a lot that has to happen, in, as everyone knows here, in 90 days, and then the 90-day plan after you buy a company. So I think I had an exit, so I had excess cash, so I could really invest in really building a team to support that, and so I think first having that team is really important, because from 2018 to 2020 really didn't make much traction, and I was trying to do it myself, and I was still a little poking around the business a little bit, so around then, and another switch was I was just looking at deals in the past, like, okay, well, here's a deal coming by, here's a deal. But whenever we went to more of a thesis approach, you get sort of an unfair advantage by focusing on a thesis. So like say, for example, like a collision. It took maybe 18 months, from we decided we wanted to do collision till we closed. So early 2021, late 2020, we're like, hey, let's do collision. So you get on PitchBook, start talking to all the investment bankers that have sold something in the space, and we were mentioning we want to do collision platform. We start to look at everything that we could find, send out letters, send out emails, start talking to the 200K EBITDA shop over in West Texas that we're not going to buy, but it might be a bolt-on one day. But we're just learning as much as possible. Any consultants in the space, any advisors, any CPAs that advise. You just start talking to tons of people. You get lots of reps, and at the same time, you're talking to some capital partners too. You're sort of calling your shot. Hey, we're going to raise for this in the future. Here's a little 12, 15-page deck that we've made, and to me, this is very entrepreneurial. Like, just to be an investor, invest, and this is like we're sort of creating a thesis. We're learning about the space. We're learning about DRP, non-DRP. There's like direct repair program, and we're started hiring for a CEO. We're talking to different former CEOs of platforms. So we're really just almost manifesting that destiny with our words, and so whenever it goes to raising money for that deal, when we start talking to capital partners, they throw fastballs, we can catch them, because they might have looked at a couple of deals. We've just spent a year looking at stuff, and then also too, like whenever you meet the really high quality companies, I think they know that we don't really come across as stuffy investors, and we have very much a teamwork, humble mentality. They sort of sense that, and a lot of times owners don't want to. They like to work with that, and we were able to partner with the largest collision center group in New Mexico, and a great partner there. And so when we start raising for money, like it's like we could have any investor. A lot of investors were like, "Let me give you a term sheet right now," and it was a very quick, easy raise, but it took a year. And so right now we're doing that for like thinking about next year, testing, inspection, certification, and compliance companies. Like one guy's like he's doing that process right now, getting on calls and learning a lot about that. We probably won't start that till Q2 next year. We started really late last year doing that with the roofing, and we're about to close on something for that. So I think it's really important to be. We haven't had any success like just finding a deal and closing it. It's always been, even the stuff that doesn't look like, okay, we have like a franchisor, but we had an idea about doing a franchisor backed roll up, being sort of like a constellation of software type thing there's a company called Authority Brands. We want to sort of be like that a little bit and do something similar to that. So really everything's been thesis driven, and that helps out a lot, because when you talk to investors, you can get, they see what you have under LOI, they see your pipeline, and then it's easier to say, hey, can you commit $50 to $100 million towards this thesis, and And so then you really start to get traction.
So the first thesis was landscaping.
Yes. I was actually the first thesis, being a dentist, was a DSO. Sure. Yeah. So I was working on that, and that deal basically died twice, and the second death was COVID. Yeah. And so at the time though, we were thinking about doing landscaping though, and I was reaching. We were working on that. Like just thinking about it, we looked at a couple and we thought about doing that. It was me and another guy at the time. But that one advice if you're trying to do independent sponsor deals is it's Stephen and I were talking about this recently. Basically, if it's around 2 to 3 million of you, 1 to 3 million, it seemed big for me at the time. It seems like that seems we're getting into a good multiple. It's a good idea. A lot of capital partners don't get excited about that. You really need to be ideally above 5 million of EBITDA, and so the first iteration was around 3, but probably a little less. One QE ended up shaking out less than 3, and I just wasn't thinking big enough. So then we went out and rounded up about 7 or 8, but then COVID happened, and dental offices were being shut down. And then we sort of like, what would work well? We were sort of working on the side on landscaping and commercial HVAC, thinking about doing those two. So we just started going outbound for that and made a lot of traction during COVID. Yeah, because we're from Texas. We're really, I was not worried about COVID from the initial onset. So in May of 2020, we basically went on the road and it had multiple companies under LOI pretty quick, because I thought, hey, grass is going to keep on growing. This is going to end. This pandemic this lockdown is going to end.
So, yeah, that's great. So the first one was landscaping. The second one was commercial HVAC.
Yeah.
I mean, what are the other 5 verticals that you're in?
Yeah. So commercial. Yeah. So the first one's landscaping. The next one's the commercial HVAC. The next one, we have a residential HVAC company called Cascade. We have collision centers, 2 different education businesses, and a franchisor. And then we have a couple smaller ones that are a little off, that are not sort of off thesis for us, but our standard playbook is doing buy and builds and service-based industries. And then the education one is more of like they're more organic growth plays.
Yeah. Before we open this up for questions, if I wanted to go launch an independent sponsor in the same way you did, how do you think I should go about this?
I was talking to recently someone about this that was more of an operator background, and and I think it really helps out having a partner. And so I founded it, but we're very much a partnership. Everyone is we treat them like partners. We on every deal, 50 to some deals now, 75% of the carry closing fees I share with the team. So that's something I just really believe in providing value and in making everyone have a lot of skin in the game. And so I would recommend trying to find a partner that would complement your weaknesses and skill sets, because when you start to, I would probably say we're probably close in similar skill sets. Just trying to get someone that has some either their CPA or CFA, or someone that has traditional deal experience through investment banking, or that would help out a lot, I think, and just try to structure it towards a win-win, because I think it helps out a lot, because it shows that you have a team, and you have more ability to execute on the thesis.
That's great. We're going to open it up for questions for Thomas. We have time for 3. Go ahead, Amon.
Yeah. So, question is like how long is our thesis, and are we buying 100%? So it's really the only consistency is inconsistency. So we have between all the companies, but there's some themes. We really love partnering with founders or owners of the existing business, like they've already that are already they have a track record and they have a dream of taking it more. We like working with what we call missionaries over mercenaries, and so we typically will do a full purchase, a 100% purchase, but we'll let them roll over to the new entity and do tax-free rollover. And so typically it's 20 to 30% that they'll roll over. And we've done that in most cases. We do that also after the platform formation. And so then between all the different platforms, we have really 7 different boards, 7 different investor bases. We have some that are that a manufacturing company that Joe's involved in. We wanted to hold that for possibly 20 years, so we went out to more of a crowd that is open to that, versus more of an institutional investor that likes to flip it in 5 years. So it's really a 3 to 7 year hold. We're talking about with 2 of them selling them in the next 9 months. So those would be like 3 years old, 3-year-olds. But the first 2 years I was trying to pitch doing an evergreen structure and trying to get a structure more committed long term, but I didn't have much success getting people signed up for that. I think having one deal, here's how to get your money, here's how we're going to protect your money, grow it, return it, has been a better raising process. And then over time, I think we might shift back to more of a HoldCo structure, maybe similar to how Jab Holdings does now. But where you have sort of long-term internal capital, like evergreen capital with a sidecar fund that you raise capital and it's all sort of affiliated together. But I think we like to think 5 years is a good answer. That's what we tell sellers. Yeah, I mean, the cost of debts went up a good bit. Oh, the question is like, how do you think about capital structure today versus a few years ago? Well, you can't put as much leverage on today. And so we've always been very atypical in that we like to start off with almost 100% equity. So if you look across all the deals, we've closed some with 1x debt, 2x debt, and there's been some cases where we put more equity on the balance sheet than we needed at first. When you average it all out, we actually closed with all equity on all our deals. Sometimes that's because we're doing a buy and build, and so we're still trying to pitch that and do that today. But you over time get leverage to where you're 3-4x in debt. Our average company is about 2.2 right now, debt to EBITDA ratio. But I think you have to, I guess today you just have to, when you're doing your base models, you can't assume that you're going to put 5.5 times eventually on it. You have to sort of have a lower percentage just because of the debt markets. But it's really the same thesis we've always done. We like to start off with all equity, ideally. I think we will eventually raise something in a committed structure, but it'll be more focused on investing in independent sponsors. Like part of the name LP First, it's like LP First, LP limited partners first, and we see an opportunity and are passionate about trying to support other independent sponsors and try to eliminate double carry amongst other that LPs have to pay. Sometimes there's pools of capital that we take from, and there's essentially there's middlemen involved, and I think there should be more opportunities for guys like us to do deals like this. There's been some people I've talked to here that have tried to do independent sponsor deals, and they've had a hard time getting them done because maybe some capital partners perceive them a certain way. But I think if you assemble the right team around them, they can be in this world and provide a lot of value. So I think we will do something one day, but it'll be a little bit of a fund of sorts and somewhat supportive for this community.
Thanks for coming on
Yeah.
today, Thomas.
I
This was
think,
great.
thanks, guys.